Welcome back to another edition of the Junkyard Dawgcast. I'm your host, Jordan Hill. Got the whole crew with us this week with Rusty Mansell and Kip Adams. Boys, the countdown is on. We are a day away from the National Signing Day, the December edition. Let's just check in with everybody. Rusty, how is this Tuesday treating you before we really get things going tomorrow?
Very strong coffee. A little different. This is a time Kip and I have been through these. I remember, I'll just say I missed it. I remember doing my final predictions. You usually have to wait till like 11 p.m. And I would just put it off and put it off and put it off and put it off. And one particular year, I predicted Cordell or Patterson to Georgia, only to find out about 5 minutes after I hit final prediction that he'd already filmed his commitment to Tennessee with ESPN. So I don't miss those days. That was I've had a few L's. I think my number's probably pretty good, but man, those last minute decisions, I'm not going to miss those. I feel like we've kind of laid it out on the board who we think's in for Georgia. Obviously, you watch all day tomorrow, and then you got to wait another day for Jordan Hall. He'll do his on Thursday. So, it's not going to be the chaos we've had in the past. I just remember doing those final predictions. Man, I would sit around and just pace all day dreading that. And that Cordell Patterson, he's not my favorite Falcon. I took an L with that one.
Nobody bats 1,000 in these for sure. Kip, how is the calm before the storm treating you?
Man, I remember. I think that was when I was down in Valdosta. Was that the Josh Harvey Clemens year? Because I'm sitting next to Corey Dowler, and I'm like, Rusty post his predictions yet? And then I was like, all right, go ahead and text him on Patterson there. That was one of those where one of the few benefits of working at ESPN was you kind of had that, you kind of knew usually which guys were filming. And, so, back then it wasn't all just live. A lot of these got filmed ahead of time, and he was one of those. But, man, he was something else in the interviews back then too. It was – I mean, I needed a cup of coffee after talking to him. It was always entertaining. I think, the last couple of years, we've prepared for anything in this, especially this early signing period. That first one, we had no idea what to expect, and Kirby just ran through and basically almost batted 1,000, got everyone, during that first signing period. And since then, it's kind of been a little bit more calm. Everyone kind of knows what to expect. Still obviously some, going to be some drama, and, a lot of these teams, these programs making last minute moves, trying to, get guys to flip. But for Georgia, I think, we kind of know what we think we know what to expect. And like Rusty said, when you get into year 15, year 16 of doing these, saying you know what to expect, there's still always going to be a new surprise. I mean, we had one just a year ago with Travis Hunter. We thought we had seen it all in recruiting, and we got a completely new, experience. And now here we are a year later, and
you just had to bring that name up right off the bat.
We're still talking about Travis Hunter here. So that is a name that is taking at least 30 to 40% off of Rusty's cell phone battery right now. So
the text messages went from "we think Georgia's in it" to "I cannot believe we got Travis Hunter." Oh my God! I'm like, that's not what we said. Okay,
and just for the record, those are from people that Rusty's friends, not from people who are giving him intel. He did not get that text. Yes. Not yet, at least.
Yes, and the Travis Hunter thing, it's a shame Twitter Spaces isn't still around, because one of the greatest Twitter Spaces of all time.
Yes. Who was the basketball kid that committed that time, Kip? Everybody went. It was like an hour long.
Kid man, that was a Tucker, right? Wasn't that
kid went to UCLA at the end? Yeah. Like an hour long. He had everybody, his youth pastor from kindergarten, his second grade teacher talked. Twitter Spaces would have been unbelievable that day with Isaiah Wilson's decision and that guy. That was crazy.
Kip would have led the Twitter Space for Isaiah Wilson.
No, that was unbelievable.
I would have left the Twitter Space for Isaiah Wilson. I mean, I would have went down and got me some pizza.
They had Kip in timeout, and then down the hall had all the reporters in timeout down the hall as they're doing the Christmas play. Oh man, we got to do a complete pod on some stories like that one day.
Absolutely. There's that seems like a good off-season
That
pod
was
for
a great
sure.
one. That was a great one. Kip's got an all-timer there.
So this will be a mailbag episode. We got a lot of questions, but I want to make sure before we start answering questions, Rusty, I want to throw it to you. Just the lay of the land for Georgia going into Wednesday. They got the number 2 overall class right now. Just how things look and sort of, again, what we're expecting to see on Wednesday.
It's amazing to me that Georgia's sitting here with a really good class, like stupid good class. And our fan base is like, man, can we add a few more? Like, can we just close this thing off? And it's just what Kirby Smart has created is the term you just used there, Georgia. It's expected. Like, I think I said this from day one, and I'll say this about Billy Napier, and I said it about some other guys. I had zero reserve that Kirby Smart could recruit, and obviously he did. I knew he could recruit as a head coach. I knew he was going to bring in guys that could recruit. Could he X and O, and could he perform on Saturdays? That was the unknown. I feel like, and I still feel like, even though he hadn't finished well, I still feel like Billy Napier is going to be able to get that roster strong. I don't know what Billy Napier can do on Saturdays. Now, Georgia fans have become accustomed to finishing in the top 3 in recruiting regardless. And now playoffs, the national championship is also expected too. So, I sit here, what is this, year 7 under Kirby Smart, and where this has come. And we really kind of know the pulse of a lot of the fan base through our message board, the Junkyard. And I thought about that this morning. I thought, man, in 2015, if I was on the eve of the number 2 recruiting class in the country, that board would be just group hugging. I mean, everybody be high-fiving and probably already having some cold hydration, but it's kind of a low key, like, this is what is expected now. Let's keep, stocking these NFL prospects. Let's keep stocking these top talent. And, what Kirby Smart has done through multiple coaching changes, through multiple guys leaving, Sam Pittman, Mel Tucker, Buster Faulkner recently. I mean, guys doing that. It's really kind of amazing that Georgia is sitting right here. I think everyone from the outside in looked at Georgia as a potential to be one of the best jobs in America because of the fan base, facilities, the players around you, alumni, everything. But Kirby Smart has really brought this thing to a peak. And we're about to find out, if they can go even higher, if they are able to go back to back. But we're sitting here with a number 2 recruiting class. Kip probably would agree, probably where they're going to finish. And it's really crazy that, people are like, this is Georgia now.
Kip, your thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, it's not to say there aren't some guys that, they still have a chance to add. We expect them to add up to 4 guys in the class, but overall, I mean, you look at this group and they had a lot of needs in this class. And I think, you look at the linebacker trio they have. I mean, Rusty will tell you, you're not going to find a better group of, inside linebackers than the 3 they got. All 3 of those guys can end up playing, on Sunday when all is said and done. And the wide receiver position, they needed help there. That's, we're still talking about that with the transfer portal as well. And I think, they've landed a couple of guys that, are underrated by the industry. And so overall, when we start talking about this group, I think, there's maybe 1 or 2 positions where they had some misses in this group. And even coming off a national championship, you're not going to bat 1,000 because you're not recruiting against air. There's resistance here. There are other programs out there that have elite recruiters, especially in the Southeast, and they're battling for guys at every position. And so you look at, a couple of misses here and there, but you also have to look at the fact that, they've had some huge wins this cycle. And I think when all is said and done, they're going to end up with top 5 prospects from 8 different states. And that's just one of those, stats that kind of stands out that, like, obviously the state of Georgia is going to be talked about. You can find, the 138th player in the state will commit to South Carolina or Tennessee. And on the Junkyard, they'll be like, the Kirby Smart missing this guy. Why didn't this guy get a look from Georgia? Because that's just how deep the state is. But at the same time, Kirby Smart is recruiting at a national level. It's a national brand. All you have to do is look at the tight end room and see Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington coming in from Las Vegas and California and the impact they had to know that he's not going to look at this as borders. It's a borderless recruiting system, and it's one that's benefited them a lot. And I just think this class, from top to bottom, it's got some impact players at some positions they really needed to hit on.
Derek Durham there tells me to breathe if we're going to end up with number 1 class. I'm going to breathe if they're number 9.
Your face is about to turn purple.
It's the ones where they go blink. That's the ones that really so look, I feel confident in Georgia. I want to answer a few questions there. Travis Hunter will not be on campus at Georgia at all. He will not be. Travis Hunter can get in a car and ride around. Travis Hunter has been to Georgia 35 times in his high school career. They cannot be on campus. Can he talk to Georgia staff? Yes. Has he talked to Georgia staff? Yes, he has. Confirmed that part, but he will not be on campus. And do I know when he's going to make a decision? I do not. All I'm confident in, he will make a decision before the next semester starts for either one of those schools. I feel like my personal feeling is this thing's getting down to Colorado and Georgia, and probably shouldn't surprise anybody there. Miami is a team potentially get involved, but everything I've heard today is Travis is not trying to entertain 100 calls. This kid's been through it. Obviously, he's been through it, and we'll see as it goes. But a couple of people I've mentioned, he will not be in Athens. He will not be watching practice. He will not be anywhere near Georgia. Would not do anything like that to jeopardize a recruitment of a player, of that caliber.
Yeah, I was gonna say for Christmas, I'm gonna get you and Kip some of those sunglasses those poker players wear, and y'all have to wear them on the podcast because any move y'all make, they're like, he blinked. I think he winked. I think, oh, buddy.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it. So Kip, push your curls back if we end up with 2 transfer wide.
I went to do it, and I caught myself doing it and realized they could end up with 3. So this morning. I mean, Travis Hunter's he's a wide receiver. They could end up with him. They could end up with Ra Thomas. And obviously Dominic Lovick's a guy that they're after as well. So I don't want to push the curl back and then they end up actually getting more than 2. So I didn't know if he meant 2 specifically. I think they do end up with 2 transfer wide receivers, I guess minimum. I think they get 2 guys, but they could end up with more than 2. So I don't want to limit things there. I don't want to minimize the curl getting pushed back.
You notice they didn't say Rusty push your curls back because it would be that would be an L. So
we're both working within our strengths here.
Oh man.
Well, we'll take a quick break real quick and then just jump full throttle into the questions. But we'll take a quick break. Be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Well, we'll start with a pretty interesting question, and I'm going to defer to my coworkers here because this will be my first time at it. The dog who barks asks, what is y'all's early signing day routine as a staff? And I'll start with you, Kip. What does your early signing day sort of look like, what it has looked like the last few years as we watch these signings come in and kind of keep track of what is going on with Georgia?
Yeah, I was going to say it's definitely changed over the last couple of years. It used to be we just split up. We picked who we were going to go drive and see. Which are you going to Tucker? Are you going to go to McEachern? Who's getting the drawing the short stick and driving to South Georgia? I did a couple crisp counties, and Lowndes was always one we went to every year, or maybe one of us needed to go to South Carolina, 5-star over there. Heck, I remember going to Kwame Gathers and still had the TomTom in the middle of the car, and it reading that I was in the Atlantic Ocean. It thought there was no GPS, so it thought I was in the water when I pull up there, and there's no signal. And then Kwame Gathers puts on a UCF hat and he keeps it on for a couple minutes before telling everyone he was kidding and he's going to Georgia. And so, the delay in reporting there was entertaining to say the least. But now, it's just kind of changed. They're all, kind of announcing they have their own medium. A lot of them are, going to be on TV and announcing live. And then obviously, Rusty's got a pretty good pulse and and has things covered. So for me now, it's just making sure we got our content ready to roll, and that we're prepared for any situation to make sure our readers have the news as soon as it happens. So it's just kind of, you can't really schedule the day, because even though, you kind of have some guys telling you, I'm signing this time, I'm signing that time, that's not you. It doesn't go that way. And so you just have to look and see, when the big names are, when they plan to announce, kind of set your clock by those times. And then obviously when Kirby Smart talks, that's a big moment as well. But, we try to just work together with these two guys here and make sure that we have everything planned. So while the junkyard will be chaotic no matter what, and even if everything goes as planned, there will still be nervous people waiting to make sure nothing's changed, and to make sure everyone comes in and wondering, why AJ Harris announced it at 8:30 a.m., but yet Georgia hasn't announced him at 12:33 p.m. We're just there to make sure that everything goes as smoothly as possible, and our guys have all the info, the accurate, up-to-date info. So that's kind of where things are now. We're always ready to pivot to anything, but we try to make sure our readers are the most informed Georgia fans on the planet, and I think we do a pretty good job of that.
You got to keep your head on a swivel when you're covering early signing day. What has it looked like the last few years for you, Rusty, and what the day winds up being for you?
A lot different. Yeah, obviously, for a while there, doing it with a radio station in Atlanta, we would do the sports and socials. I remember the 2018 class. The whole idea, Pace Academy called me, and Jamari Salyer wanted to do his announcement in a place big enough to host a lot of people. So we kind of parlayed that into sports and social to Battery. And it turned into one of the best days that I've ever been involved with. We had 11 kids make their decisions that day. And it was stroke of luck. But to have Jamari be able to make his decision that morning at a place in front of that many people, Emory Jones, several people went that day and made their decisions. So it was Chris Smith was there. By the way, Chris Smith, who's still playing at Georgia, made his decision there that day. So it was really cool to have that many. But, today's world, there's not that many kids left to make decisions tomorrow. I think for the Georgia fans, obviously tomorrow at 3 p.m. on ESPN, I'll be watching Damon Wilson, the 5-star. And, here's the thing. You find this out later, and we won't know. But, most likely Damon Wilson will send his LOI in tomorrow morning at 7:30, wherever he's going. And that school will not announce until after he makes his decision. You're not going to sit there all day but have to struggle and, fight your nerves all day. That the school that's getting him will know when he walks up. That's very rare. Nakobe Dean, however, was not one. So Nakobe Dean did a good job of keeping several places, and including Rusty Mansell guessing. I think in the end of the day, my crystal ball was right on Nakobe Dean for about 3 months. I missed Nakobe Dean's decision about 4 times in the last hour. That was. In fact, I've heard Dan Lenning tell that story at a coaching clinic, I believe, and he said that Kirby Smart was sick that day, and Kirby Smart's laying on the couch in his office. Dan Lanning watched it, not knowing they're getting him or not. And the kid announces it like the whole hall dog pile. And they go in and basically wake Kirby Smart to fear him to death. And he watches it right as he says it. So sometimes they don't know either. And, that what a decision that would turn out being for a player to come back to Georgia, the type of leader he was. So, there'll be some things tomorrow. Be a lot of decisions around the country, but I feel like that we've got a good pulse on what Georgia's going to add. And we'll see tomorrow as we're riding. And again, Jordan Hall will make his decision on Thursday. And I've said Georgia for a while there. I feel like he's a major prospect and major target for them. And you start talking about fit, what he brings to Georgia. I feel like Jordan Hall is going to. I feel like he's going to be really, really good under Trey Scott in that system.
Next question is from Evans Junkyard Dog, who asks, in 3 years, when we look back on this class, who will be the dude? And I'll throw it to you, Rusty. Who really strikes you as the guy that is going to be, a few years down the road?
I get one.
You take as many as you want, my friend.
I really, truthfully think if you want to go like high pick, I think Raylan Wilson's a surefire NFL guy. I just think he fits everything. The way college football, he's got the NFL pedigree with his dad playing in the NFL. I've watched a lot of tape on him. I think Raylan Wilson has the impact that can be a high level because he fits the collegiate game. And you give him a couple years in the weight room and what he can do in the NFL because of how big and fast he is and he can cover. I think Raylan Wilson is going to be an absolute really, really good player at Georgia. I would go B. I would say Jordan Hall because of the ability to develop defensive linemen. I've spent 3 days with Jordan Hall last July in Naples, and I watched that kid work like he had 0 offers. And what impressed me the most, 3 days of practices, didn't have to be there. He had 50 offers, committed to Georgia, Alabama, LSU, whatever. He's with some kids that don't have any offers. And when the coach would speak to the group at the end of the day, you're talking about Naples in July now. It's warm. When the coach would speak to the position group, he was the first person in front of the coach, had his helmet off, and the kid just loves football. And when you have that type of mentality, his physical ability and what Georgia has shown to do with big men, especially defensive linemen, I think Jordan Hall can be that next guy that the Georgia fans really know that this guy's going to be a star too.
Kip, who strikes you as the guys that they are looking to add in this class that could be the guy in a few years?
Oh, I'm going to start with Tyler Williams, the wide receiver out of Lakeland. I think he's a guy that can just do it all. And I think that Georgia's got a couple wide receivers that I think are, maybe a little undervalued by the industry. And I think him, even inside the top 100 with the 24/7 Sports Composite, I think is a guy that could be a top 50 guy. And 6'3", 200 pounds, still learning to play the position, but just I think he's a big play machine. I think he just has a lot of upside. A guy that can really fit in well with what Georgia likes to do offensively. I think after the catch, kind of an aspect that Georgia's lacked this season is guys who can, break tackles and make plays after the catch. And I think he's a guy that continues to make strides as a route runner. I think he's got the size to be a solid blocker out there on the perimeter, which is obviously important for what Georgia wants to do, how physical they want to be at the line of scrimmage. And I think he's just going to get better at playing the game of football. His junior season, wasn't really playing a lot of wide receiver, able to really make a big impact as a senior. Big return man, plays in one of the state's best programs. And I think once he adjusts, I think the sky is the limit for him. And since Rusty got 2, I'm going to go with a multi-sport athlete in Chris Peel out of North Carolina, a guy that just makes a lot of plays. You turn the film on, and you see a guy that you could tell he loves the game of football. And he's out there, making plays in all 3 phases of the game. But it's also a guy that, has solid, impressive track numbers, over 44 foot on the triple jump. I think that tells me that, he's got the athleticism, and you look at the film, he does everything for that program. I think that's a guy that, again, isn't one of the more highly rated guys in this class, but is still a top 200 player. That's just kind of where Georgia is when the average player in Georgia's class is a top 150 guy. I think I looked at the other day and saw that I think 142, the average player rating for Georgia's class is right around that 142 mark in the country. That's just a really high mark. And for Chris Peel to be, a little bit under that, I think he's a guy that can come in and kind of, as a sleeper in this day and age, as a middle 4-star, 6 foot, 175 pounds, and go in and make a big impact. Maybe not in year 1, but I think in year 2 and year 3, Georgia defensive backs, they've kind of shown that, maybe you're not making an instant impact, but by the time your career is done, you just look at Chris Smith and the year he had coming back for that, that extra year made all the difference for him. He's an All-American right now. And I do think that, Chris Peel has some traits there that could really shine at the next level.
Yeah, with my answer, I think I would lean with Rusty and Raylan Wilson. I mean, and I cannot get over the amount of talent that inside linebacker room is going to have the next few years. Because you think, too, that Jamon and Smile are just sophomores. And so to add the 3 guys they're adding, it's incredible. And, Raylan's the guy to me. And guy I'm intrigued by just to see what he's able to do as a guy that I covered a little bit in high school, A.J. Harris from Glenwood and finished up at Central Phoenix City. Just got a lot of physical traits, and to get, come into Georgia and get to work with Will Muschamp and Kirby Smart. I'm just really intrigued to see how he develops and what he's able to do. Let's see. Next question is going to be from Hunker Down, who asked, this may be too early, but which soon-to-be signee, in your opinion, is much better than his recruiting ranking? I'll start with you, Kip. Is there anyone that really strikes you as, being a guy that could get to Georgia and play past what everybody perceives as his recruiting ranking?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with offensive lineman Joshua Miller, a guy out of Virginia that came to camp, and immediately shot up the board. There were a number of offensive linemen in this class that Georgia seemed to be hot after, and as soon as that camp season started, the recruiting board, you immediately just saw it change. There were different guys that they were in with, and that tells you that they saw some guys in person, and some guys impressed, and maybe some guys didn't measure up the way they thought they would. And I think Joshua Miller is one of those guys that came in, and Stacy Searle saw him and couldn't say no. 6'5", 305 pounds, like I said, out of Virginia. I think he's got, just the physical makeup right there to play multiple positions and to show some versatility and some physicality. Stacy Searle puts a high premium on that because he knows he can get them there technically. That's where he excels at, is just making sure that, his offensive linemen are technically sound. And I think physically Josh Miller has the size. Year or two in the program, you get a guy that you flip from Penn State, which Georgia did a couple times this cycle, just the way it worked out. I think he's a guy that down the road could really, really play a lot of high-quality football for Georgia's offensive line.
Rusty, is there a player that strikes you that you think will play beyond what is perceived as his recruiting ranking coming into this?
I'm actually pretty confident in this one, and based off some of the early feedback I've got, I'm pretty confident in Yazeed Haynes, the wide receiver out of Philly. He's a 3-star, I think, in the composite, and I think that he's going to be that guy. He's got some juice to him, and based off his little initial workout, from what I'm hearing, when he got on campus, probably pretty good evaluation by the Georgia staff. We'll see what happens as he gets into practice and puts pads on. And I'm not saying this kid's a 5-star, but I'm saying I think he's a little bit better. And I will tell you this: he trained down in Georgia. That was the first time I've heard of him. He trained down in Georgia last January and February with some guys in the Atlanta area, and they were the first people ever to hit me up about him. And I get hit up a lot about players, but I had to go back and look at that tape that those guys had sent me. And these are guys that train NFL wide receivers, and there's some people that are really, really high on this young man. And I feel like that he is going to be a player that can jump into the mix pretty quickly, barring anything crazy. Also want to say, I think that's a quick shout out there to Darius Smith's dad's here in the comments. And young man got me to Appling County, and I didn't know where Appling County was, but I went to Baxley, Georgia, and saw him. I think as a sophomore, first time, and now he's a 6'6", 225, 230 pound young man that's going to be counting to play a lot at Georgia. I remember watching his track last year. We all saw his track, and and seeing we've seen athletes like that before and measurable. So it's good to see people in here and parents with us as well. But I would say Yazeed Haynes is the guy that I think is a guy that's going to outplay his ranking, and I feel pretty confident so far.
Yeah, Haynes was my pick, and you had talked about that too, Rusty, that it seemed like the Georgia coaches kind of got on him at a good time and before he really kind of got a lot of attention. And I would watch some of his highlights just from this senior season, and I mean, I was very impressed with what he was able to do.
He transferred schools, and I don't know. I'm not going to try to be the Philly expert on levels, but so when I heard a couple of things about that, I made some calls and talked to some people, and he went to a school and basically dominated. And for Georgia, he shut it down. Penn State thought they had him. Georgia were able to get him. Fran Brown was huge in that. Brian McClendon was big there. So we'll see as the spring goes on. But some early buzz off of those young players that were in this weekend and did their little personal workouts and things. I think Haynes was a guy like people are like, oh boy, this is nice. So we'll see how he goes through the spring and through the winter. Things we hear about him, but certainly I think he had a fairly good impression on that staff this weekend.
before we wrap this episode up, go to each of y'all and just give parting thoughts before we get to Wednesday. I mean, my expectation, as we've talked about, is it'll be kind of run of the mill in that Georgia's still going to get probably the number 2 class, but you never know going into a day like this. But I think we kind of have a good feel for what's coming. Rusty, thoughts before we wrap this podcast up about just what we'll see on Wednesday?
Thought Georgia had a chance with some things. As November approached, especially after that Tennessee weekend. And I thought Georgia had a chance. I never said that in this cycle. Very careful about that. Never said Georgia had a chance. Georgia needed to win a few to wind up being number 1. And I'll say, looks like congratulations to Alabama. I think they're going to finish number 1. They closed off a few. They were able to hold Caleb Downs and hold Justice Haynes. So, with me, that kind of sealed that thing. I was interested specifically at that time, if Justice Haynes would actually flip to Georgia. And if Caleb Downs would, there was some buzz behind the scenes. Ohio State was the team that, they were in this thing till the end, but, Alabama holds. But I'll say this with Georgia. If you're going to get real picky, obviously the people that follow every day know they missed the 5 techs, those 3 guys, Kelby Collins, Cameron James, and those type bodies. And then they missed Justice Haynes. We're not going to sugarcoat that. But you take that away, I think this class, man, is just this is a Kirby Smart special. I mean, what they have done and what they got potential to finish off. And you start talking about what makes Georgia different. I had a high school coach tell me Friday, call me on the way home from watching Georgia. He goes, man, I've never seen people that big. That's just what Georgia is. I mean, they're large humans, and there's only so many of those around. In Alabama and Ohio State and Michigan and Georgia, they all look the same. But Georgia, when you see them up close and you see them in person, I don't care how many Georgia games you've been to over the last 30, 40 years, until you see what they're trotting out there right now, it's crazy how big and fast they are at every position. I wish people could see Keely Ringo just walk up and realize that kid plays corner. Like, he looks like a linebacker, so Malachi Starks, big guy. There's just, it's crazy. You look at the success Quay Walker had last night. Kip knows this. The first time you see Quay Walker in person, you think that dude's 6'4". Like, that dude's running around in space as a linebacker. There's only so many of those. And you go back to the very first press conference, and I don't know the exact quote, but Kirby Smart said, we have got to get longer, faster, and stronger, basically in those words. And they have flipped this roster for sure. 1 through 85, 1 through 105, whatever the number is. Being Kip have to try to guess, but 1 through 85. You want to talk about a roster at Georgia? Whew, there's some dudes.
And even the walk-ons, it's incredible.
Oh my God, yeah. They're getting people that are committed other places to come. That's the kind of different thing. Like, you see Buster Faulkner. He came to Georgia to put the SEC in Georgia on his resume, and he got a job. These walk-ons are going to Georgia to put it on there, get the tape of just practicing at Georgia and then going other places. That's kind of where we are right now.
Kip, your final thoughts as we get ready for Wednesday.
Georgia had, they had several needs in this class, and I think you're seeing them just flip multiple position rooms. You just look at, again, we've talked about the wide receiver position, and a couple of guys that we think are going to, have very promising careers in Athens. And, they have other guys as well. Anthony Evans, the speed that he brings to the table, bringing in Lawson Lucky and Pierce Sperlin at the tight end position. I think the pass catchers, they're continuing to, increase the talent level there. And then also the edge rusher position. It's been a point of focus this season. Where is Georgia getting its pressure on quarterbacks? And the young guys at that position, when Marvin Jones Jr. is healthy, Michael Williams has obviously flashed a lot. But you look at this group, if they're able to add a guy like Damon Wilson, who, Lakeland put everybody they could on him, and he still had 7 tackles, I think a sack in that game. He looked good in that game. And I think if he's participating in the All-American events as well, I think they're going to look at him and think, you know what, man, maybe we're a little low on him as far as the industry is concerned. But if they're able to add a guy like that to the group they already have, Samuel and Pimbo, a lot of potential, outstanding frame. You've seen the workout videos of him. once he continues to to learn how to play the position, he's got a lot of upside. But there was a guy that went down to IMG Academy from Valdosta this past year and took a lot of playing time from some other guys that were highly rated, and Gabe Harris. And I think that's another guy that, again, I think, you get him in that room, and Georgia's got some guy. They flipped that room around fairly quickly at that position. You can never have too many edge rushers. If there's one that jumps in the portal that looks like he can come in and make an instant impact, I'm sure Georgia will look at it. But right now, just looking at the high school guys and focusing on these guys before we start looking at this talking transfer portal, I think Georgia's answered its biggest needs in this class, and they've stacked position rooms that were a question mark throughout this season.
Steve Wiltfong has called me 3 times. So I need to take a poll on the side over there. I need to take this call, or I need to put it off. So Steve's not calling to ask me what I want for Christmas. I can tell you that.
We'll wrap this up. I will throw out there at Army Dog 81. I got to Venmo him $20. He asked a men's basketball recruiting question.
Oh, my God.
The name I just throw out there, Asa Newell. He's a 5-star power forward. His brother
Jordan's uncle has chimed in right here.
Yes. His brother Jaden is a walk-on at Georgia, so that would be a guy they are heavy after. So we're gonna wrap this up.
Big win against Notre Dame. I mean, I think that's got some people's attention.
Absolutely. Got a lot of people excited, and rightfully so. So we'll get out of here on that. Be sure to be all over Dogs 247 the next couple of days as we write about everything going on. I think we'll get Kirby Smart around 11:30 will be his press conference, so be on the lookout for updates from that. But we'll wrap it up here for Rusty Mansell and Kip Adams. I'm Jordan Hill. Appreciate everybody watching and listening. Until next time, take care.